welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing a little bit of a different video. We're going to be sitting here talking about a series that most people on the channel are pretty familiar with. Pretty familiar.
If they're not familiar with any of it, then it's only been like 8 films.
The whole main series. The whole main series has accrued almost 500 views total over all 4. So,
Of course, we're talking about the Looking Glass Anthology.
I know.
And the Transfigured series.
Trilogy. Transfigured trilogy.
Ever.
TT. Transfigured trilogy. So, there's no doubt that the Looking Glass Anthology and the Transfigured trilogy are paused, and they're never coming back, and the series is dead, and Game of Mao is never coming back. It's dead. Everything's dead. It
Sorry.
Peak!
If you were asked you for another, would it deliver?
By the end of the year.
No, we won't.
And if you don't want to, it's your choice. I always say it's your choice.
We don't deliver. You said it wouldn't come out until
I'm
February.
gonna deliver you unto your deliverer.
You said it wouldn't come out until February.
Until what?
February.
February?
Yeah.
When did I say that?
February.
Oh. Anyways. So there is no doubt that the Looking Glass Anthology and the Transfigured trilogy are a bit strange. All of the films were a little bit... We didn't have a lot of plans for the first few films. The first film we actually did was Transfigured, and I think there's a lot of intrigue in that we did make an improvised film as our first sort of foray into this universe, and you do have to look at Transfigured really, really carefully to understand how it connects into the lore of the series. So basically this video is sort of one of our closing outs of 2019, the end of a decade, as a matter of fact. So we're going to be doing a lot of videos that are going to kind of close out this year. Going to do a lot of cool stuff. So, yeah. If you like what we're doing here, like the video. Doing this for the algorithm YouTube. Screw off. And hit the subscribe button if you enjoy. We are going to start right now. So, we're going to go in chronological order from the very first Transfigured all the way up to Transfigured Part 3, which was just released a few weeks ago. So, starting out in Transfigured, there's not a whole lot to really delve into here other than the shadows. And since we have our theorist here, we're going to let the theorist explain a little bit about what the theory garnered in response.
Okay. Well, first off, like Joseph said, this film was totally improvised. And in fact, we did this one on a complete whim. We had no real plans with it at all. The reason we did it was because our electricity went out.
Yeah, that wasn't fake. The electricity was actually out that day.
It was out, and before that, before we even recorded, we were actually doing weird improvisational stuff off the cuff.
If you watch my 100 subscribers video, you know what weird stuff we did.
Yikes, I remember that.
But so with Transfigured, the basic plot, and I put that in quotes because it was a very loose plot at this point, was that something weird was going on at our house. The house didn't have a name at this time, and we were investigating what the occurrences were.
Actually,
Yes, and our friends had disappeared, yeah. We were trying to figure out what was going on. And in one of the scenes in Transfigured, I talk about, I say, I have a working theory for the shadows. Which is
No script.
which was a pretty cringe line now that you think about it. But I mean, what I basically said was that the shadows were extensions of ourselves, but at the same time they weren't exactly us. So that sort of laid an unintentional emphasis on unintentional foundation for the rest of Joseph's film, and sort of some of the and a lot of things came out of that were just really cool that we saw in retrospect. What's really cool about Transfigured is that it was just a bottle in a rocket scenario where we're not really going to have an experience like that again, I don't think. It's just something that happened so randomly, and even though it's like very rough around the edges, it's filmed on an iPhone. It's
It was on an iPad actually.
iPad, whatever.
Held in horizontal, nonetheless.
And there's some
vertical.
There's just so many things that happen in it that are really.
There was like actual stuff that happened.
Yeah,
too. There were a few things like one time there's a loud rustling noise back in one of the scenes. No one did anything, and there was one like the fence rattled really hard, and that was real. But and also the whole thing with wasn't like fake blood or anything I had on my arm. I did actually have a nosebleed.
Yeah.
And I did go inside, and I was like, well, at this point, I was just putting blood on my arm, and we'll see what happens.
And really, that sort of improvisation from you was kind of the catalyst for the rest of the movie, because we didn't know it would turn into this sort of conjuring, insidious sort of type of thing, but that is what it turned into. And we didn't really know much about improv other than that we just knew that the power was out. But I think it speaks volumes to how creative we would get later, that we were already on that level of creativity, like just playing off of each other. And it was a serious plot, but based in a very sort of comedic script. Like, if I wrote that script down now, I'd probably cringe at every line that I wrote. Like, you can transcribe all of them into a script, but it would be really weird to do such a thing as that.
Was a guy by a van?
Yes,
too.
I was going to say there's the big elephant in the room is that part with the van. That was, in fact, 100% real. The guy was actually at his door asking us, what are we doing by his van?
A, the power was out. 2, we had 2 flashlights looking into his van.
And Sammy had a 2x4, and James had a bat.
I had a 2x4. So we looked very suspicious.
We did look very suspicious. Yes. But we were. I mean, it was all fun and games.
And at the this will take effect in the way later stages, but at the very end, when they cast the supposed demons out of me, all of the demons got casted out. One stayed. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, and that last scene, even though the rest of the film is very rough around the edges, that last scene is unironically really good.
Yeah.
And it's just the building of the tension in it and how it just ends on a cliffhanger was really good, and I don't think we were at the stage yet where we meant to make something like that. Yeah. But it was so good, and it still looks good.
That was I hadn't even decided to do my film major at that point yet. Like, I was still in high school. Like, I hadn't even decided to do film yet. I think it was about 2 weeks after that I decided to pursue film, and of course that's a good segue into and we'll talk about more of how each film relates to the last one.
Yeah, the intention of this podcast is to reflect on how we felt about the films, as well as explain to you all some of the connections in between the films, because there's a lot of stuff that might be confusing. Yeah,
this really is basically us explaining the plot, which can seem a little weird, but the films have come and gone, and I think it's worth it to at least explain, at least in my mind, this whole universe that we all sort of unintentionally created, is this world that has a lot of lore that we didn't expect to be there, but it ended up being there, and we sort of have embraced all of that as part of the canon of this whole anthology. So a lot of it's really interesting. At least I think. I don't know how interesting it's going to be to listen to, but I think it's considering the general success of all the films. I would say that this is going to be something interesting for you all. So I guess from Transfigured, I I've already I've said this in my creative process. A lot of what I'm going to say, at least, is a lot of a reflection of the first creative processes. I doubt anyone even remembers those videos. They weren't hugely successful, but
Your channel wasn't even.
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't really. I hadn't really come up with
It
the
was still
solid name. It was still Captain Terrence at that. Or was it Infinite Production?
I think it was
just Captain Terrence and South Station.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it must have been pretty close to that. But yeah.
Speaking of South Station.
So there's a funny story behind the South Station that I think will resonate a lot more now that the channel's grown a little bit more and more people are listening in. But I think the most interesting thing about the South Station is I wrote it as a stage play originally. And when I wrote it as a stage play, it was 3 pages stage play of someone sitting in a train station listening to a voice from hell. and that's all.
I didn't know that.
That's all. Yeah, that's what it was. It was just that. It was very inspired by No Exit, the play by.
The Absurdist play.
Yeah, the Absurdist play, and I did that, and it was at that point that I started to make the connection that movies and writing can actually come together in a little thing called screenwriting, and so I wrote a screenplay called The South Station. Again, that screenplay was only about 3 pages when I first wrote it. And, that's basically not even the length of a short film by definition. So I wanted to expand the story a little bit. So I did take more time to write it. And I don't want to take up all the talking here. But the basic gist of it is that I used the play that I wrote as a catalyst for the main plot. Whether the plot worked out is up to a great questioning because the script was trash, the end film was trash, and I think all of us can agree that all 3 of us had our worst acting in that.
Camera work was trash, the lighting was trash, the acting was trash, the screenwriting was trash. Trash.
That's just about all the aspects of a film. They were all trash. Yet somehow, the film exploded.
It was so important to
It
all
was
the stuff that happened in it.
And I mean, not only did the film get extremely good reception, but
no dislikes.
none of my films have had dislikes at all.
Yeah.
Which is an incredibly amazing feat
If you were
as a
gonna give one
filmmaker.
dislike, it would be the station.
It would have been,
That's
but
the only
I
one
guess
that would.
as a first film, it kind of got a little bit of a mercy from. But the South Station really was just like, I don't even know what I would call it. I wouldn't call it a passion project necessarily, but I wouldn't call it like my foray into filmmaking. If I could call a film my foray into filmmaking, it would be The Looking Glass. Because that one was the first technically good film that I made.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Anyways. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the South Station. I mean, it was really just us making a film, basically. I asked James and Samuel if they wanted to make a film, and they said sure. Samuel hadn't acted before. James was obviously into acting.
Well, based on all those videos, I never acted, but I like do stuff. We did so many scenes.
Yeah, Pirates and all that
Pirates,
stuff.
Dark Knight, all that.
Yeah, you were an actor at heart.
But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about.
Also, Station had no drama, no drama, but didn't have anything filmy, so I couldn't get on.
What?
They had no State Department drama. Love it all.
Oh, you're talking about
Brian
Brian Station.
Brian
They had,
Station.
Okay.
Those of you that probably don't know where we're at, high school I went to wasn't exactly the I don't even know what to call it, but it just wasn't good. Put it like that. 4 people.
So, with South Station, it was definitely not a great film looking back on it, but at the same time, I do still have a certain affection for it, because it is something you can look back and laugh at, but it's also...
And we definitely did when we did our marathon of all the films.
I mean, it's also cool to look back at it and say, oh, wow, look how much we've grown from this. Look how much better we've gotten. I guess to get into the nitty-gritty details, because I don't really have much to say in regards to reflecting on South Station, except that my acting was a yikes in that one. And I'd done theater for years during that time.
Well, why don't you explain the plot and your character?
Yeah. Okay, good idea. So,
and let's just preface that Ryan Flanagan may be the single most important character in this whole shenanigan.
Well, he's one of them. He's one of the top 2.
Yeah, there are definitely 2 important characters that are central to the whole world.
3, but
technically. Well, you're gonna look at it 4.
Yeah,
because Titus and Ryan come into play.
But so with this one, even now it's sort of hard for me to give the plot to this one because it's very thin. But basically, and we'd all agree with that. And it's hard to convey. I mean, even in our acting, it was hard to convey the plot because we weren't good at it.
Yeah, I had no clue how to write a screenplay, and I had no clue how to make a structurally sound film. So I just made a plot.
Of course, if a good actor will
deliver
have bad lines.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Not to say that mattered, but
Ewan McGregor in Star Wars.
So,
exactly.
Ryan Flanagan, to me, my interpretation of him is like this stuck-up businessman who is looking. I mean, he's also very opportunistic, looking for anything to make a quick buck on. But he's also cynical of others who do the same. So he's a bit of a hypocrite. So he hears this radio broadcast where this guy named Polk. Mr. Polk.
Polk. Polk.
Oh.
I thought it was P-O-Q-U-E.
No, P-O-L-K.
I don't remember that. But
I forgot what his first name is.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Polk.
Because I'm Jonathan. I'm Jonathan too. You made 2 Jonathans.
He makes a play called If Death Were Stage, which is a cool name.
He has a book.
He has a
book, yeah.
And you're the one that's wanting to make the show about it.
Yeah, and I'm wanting to make it into a TV show, because, I mean, that whole thing, the title sounds intriguing, If Death Were. So I make it...
What's the whole plot of the show?
the whole plot is that there are 2... I might get this wrong, you might have to correct me, but in the first episode, there is a sight of a double murder. But it's supposed to be a fake double murder, right?
It's the whole premise of the show is like to put real people that don't know that the deaths are fake. They're supposed to see how they
they're supposed to react, and we see how they react to it. But
see, it's
turns out
I don't mean to like. I had such a great idea in my head, but I think I was way in over my head in trying to make a plot like that at that time.
And then there's the best scene in the whole movie where our dad plays the cop.
That's my dad, yeah. That's mine and James's dad.
And there's an actual murder that happens. Like it's not like a fake one like we'd set it up to be. It's an actual murder. It's an actual.
Well, it was supposed to be the fake murder that turned into a real.
It turned into a real murder.
That idea was so like I mean you mentioned like. What if we could make that film better? And I'm like, yeah, sure, but like,
we definitely
could,
yeah. I'd say just let it lie at this point, because honestly, like, I don't know, we could make it better, but that plot's already been kind of used by us at least.
But I find the bodies, and then I find this address from this evidence that the cop at first says I can't have, But then I say something and he's like, fine, you can have it. So it's a very quick change, but that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was a horrible, horrible scene.
Funny scene, you should watch it. But what's important is on the address. 3114 Looking Glass Avenue. And this is the first time we see that address. And that address, that location is in every single film afterwards. Yeah. And even in Transfigured.
That is where
that's where we're at. But we didn't know that at the time, but now that's canon. 3114 Looking Glass Avenue is where all the films take place. And that's what's really important there. And then Samuel can talk about...
your little...
Because that's all that there is to my character right now,
yeah.
Ryan Flanagan. Just remember that name because we'll be mentioning it some other time, which you all probably know if you've seen the film.
And the only other character besides his arm wrestling jailbird guy was Ryan's brother, Titus Flanagan.
Yeah.
And the whole story of him basically is like... They didn't ever say that brother did anything to him. That's why he's... I don't think he ever wrote anything in that explained why I was coming to him. It's kind of...
You're just a hardened criminal.
Yeah.
That's really all there is to it.
I'm basically in jail, and I beat this guy in an arm wrestling match.
And I think that the problem with that scene is that who in the freaking heck was I, and why was I there?
I mean...
What was my character's purpose? Who knows?
We obviously didn't consider this, but what if this was the... first appearance of Morbus? Because you played Morbus later.
Wrestling against Morbus.
And you're the one that tells him to murder.
F-71 is what
That's not. No, that's not canon.
But it's not canon. I'm just
Anyway.
saying. We could BS that, but we're not going
Anyway, I beat him in this arm wrestling match. It gives me some money, and then gives me a wad of cash.
A wad of
cash.
And he
Remember
gives me
that.
a knife.
And a knife. Remember the knife.
Green
And
knife.
basically, I use the knife, I guess, to kill a guard and escape.
Yeah.
So I escape,
Yeah.
basically. And
Suspension of disbelief.
And you're the one who kills the two people. Too, right? Or is that
That
not...
was yes. That was
was
my canon.
Oh, okay.
I always wondered that.
Yeah,
if it was him.
Because the way I had it in my mind, I didn't write it in for whatever horrible screenwriter decision I made to not write it in, but it was in my mind that you had killed them and it was a double murder, and that because the double murder was like they killed each other or something. I don't know.
I don't know. So basically, somehow, my character ends up at 3114 Looking Glass Avenue. Not really established what that means to him.
I mean, it's where Ryan lives, right?
Yes.
I guess Titus would know where Ryan lives.
Yeah, because he's their brother.
Yeah.
Allow me to
So,
introduce myself.
Ryan goes to the house,
is Dr. Neal.
and
I come from
I'm
the
already
World
there,
Yeah.
and I basically knock him out, and the ending scene is we're talking, and I'm trying to tell him and expose like his whole little plan with this fake reality show, and
So even though Samuel is, or Titus is a criminal,
So it seems.
he's also against this idea of, which this is something else that could have been made even more complex. I think is that there's not really a good guy in this scenario.
No.
I mean, I'm faking people dying. I'm not actually killing people,
Yeah.
and Titus is.
plus your guy doesn't really come off as a nice guy.
Yeah.
The way he talks to people, like, don't have to tell me how many times it's failed.
Yeah, but Titus is killing people, but we don't really know if Titus is just trying to get this show canceled or something, and maybe he won't kill anybody else, but it's really left
Left open interpretation.
wide open.
So basically, he's like, hello, brother. And he's like, Titus. Like, I'm gonna
Titus?
reveal your truth to the world. And the ending scene, raising a knife
I'll face your truth.
and coming down at him, but then it goes to black.
Yeah.
And
That's important.
Yes,
It cuts
yeah.
to black. It doesn't show that I die.
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Yeah, it doesn't show anything.
So it's actually quite convenient that I chose not to show that ending. I mean,
Very, very convenient.
I chose that just because that's the way I wrote it. Like, I didn't have any intention to ever do something like that, but out of the 80 people that have watched the Lost Tapes, that'll come up later again.
Yeah.
But, you know, the South Station, I do have I mean, like, that was my young writing years, but I've said this every film that has come out, we've marathoned every film before that.
Yeah.
And so recently, when Transfigured Part 3 came out, and that's all of... It's still, to me, a little bit crazy how much we've made of this whole situation, and I'm going to reiterate that a lot, that it started at a 13-minute film that we filmed on an iPad with horrible audio, horrible lighting.
30.
33 minutes.
Oh, well, I was talking about the South Station for, like, the camera.
Oh, the
we
South
did
Station on an iPad?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
We filmed F-71 on an iPad.
No, we didn't.
F-71 on the iPad.
didn't
Yes,
film
it was.
F-71 on
Yes,
an
it was.
No way.
The Looking Glass was the first one I filmed on the camcorder.
And how was the quality so much better on F-71?
We learned. I learned. You all learned.
It's such a difference, though.
Yeah.
It's a really big difference from the South Station to the
Well, we can talk about that really big difference right now.
What a transition.
So, the next film is
I'm excited to talk
is
about
one that, I mean, all of us have a really, really fondness towards this film. It is also, I mean, every film has its own importance, but F-71 is of the utmost importance to understanding.
It's pivotal.
Yeah.
It establishes that a lot.
It is the F-71 was kind of, I mean, first and foremost, it was the film where I decided as a screenwriter, and we all decided to continue this Looking Glass universe. And like, what I basically...
by the time, also, wasn't until...
My friend, you're finally awake.
The
You
Looking...
outlined the light. You.
It wasn't until
Carter, don't do anything
either
rash.
Looking Glass or Transfigured Part 2 where we
Here
just...
quite a few hours.
It was Transfigured Part 2 where we decided to mix
No.
the Transfigured universe.
You were
Wait.
trying to infect me.
The Looking
Yes.
Glass, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that after this
Really?
one, because that'll be after this one.
No, look, it's less than...
What else would you be trying to do?
So we basically made South Station,
Perhaps
F-71,
trying to
and
take
Looking
you
Glass
somewhere
without
safe?
the realization
Said that
and
many
ended
times.
up tying them
You're a
in
liar.
Transfigured
Yeah.
into one
Because
big...
Transfigured was just one thing. Like, we never thought about, like, it was a whole 2 years before we made another Transfigured movie, because we didn't really think we were going to make another one, because
No.
we were just, I was kind of focusing on making the scripted stuff. And I mean, we weren't doing yearly film. We made South Station and then immediately turned around and made F-71.
Yeah.
Like, it is a 6-month difference between the two. And to say that I wrote the script in one day is the absolute truth, because I sat down in my study hall and wrote the script in one day. And maybe edited around a couple times, but
We still have the the original version of F-71 at the end of
I'm fine.
when you talk about the
Yes.
F-7.
Yes.
I watched that and I was just amazed at how different it was at that time.
So
Just so weird.
I liked it. I always love to talk about the original idea we had for F-71.
Yeah.
Because the original idea was that me and James were both doctors, and we were both doctors, and this Samuel's name, his character's name was always Carter Owens. I cannot say where I got that name from. It was just the first name that popped into my mind. So who knows where that came from? But me and James were actually going to be doctors, and Carter, Sammy, was some patient who woke up from a coma or something, and he remembers his girlfriend Jessica, and
I have no
Oh
clue.
gosh, I remember filming that.
yeah,
Jessica!
that peaked. Holy moly!
Oh, yikes.
Anyways, you know,
Yes.
it's funny to me to think about, like, we only made a teaser for that. Like, we made a 30-second teaser for that, and like we did film. We filmed a decent portion of it.
No.
Yeah.
We filmed like 5 minutes of it,
War.
but
Greed.
I don't know. There was something about it that was just so.
It didn't feel
It
right.
didn't feel right. And that's the crucial difference between the South Station and F-71. Was that in F-71 we didn't go with the first draft, and that's the important part about what came in the future. Because if you're gonna
Also,
be
like, the after the first 5 minutes, we started looking at the script like, well, this doesn't really make much
Yeah.
sense.
And that's it's key if you want to be a filmmaker or actor or whatever. We are, even though I'm the screenwriter and the director, really all of us are the creative minds behind it. That's why I always say we created the Looking Glass Anthology, because it really is true.
Say,
Like,
even with your script, like, would always add ideas, what we think would make it better.
Yeah.
Maybe this line would be better than this.
And I mean, that's why all the films always end up so much better, because there is a large creative force in, and I think Sammy would say this especially as someone who has no background in creative stuff, essentially, is that there is creativity pretty much anywhere you look at it. And, you know, how F-71 turned out was because of, it's just like, it's a monumentally cool film to look at and be like, the plot is really structurally sound. There are some genuinely intriguing moments, I think, and I think the film stands the test of time in terms of its plot more than any of my other films. And I had a lot of ideas for the film, but ultimately, the plot that made its way was that this F-71 virus is... The virus was originally going to actually be more like a traditional virus, but the way I structured it in the final draft was, it was more of a psychological figment, and just like every film I've made so far, it is left to your interpretation whether F-71 is real or it's not. Because that's the ultimate question, is like, is F-71 just some liquid that he injected into himself to make him think he was going crazy, or is it actually something there? And that's kind of the question I ask, but, you know.
Well, I thought at the end, it confirmed that it was, like, F-71. Schizophrenia, and Dr. Jack Neal was right all along.
But again, that character that I made for myself is kind of crazy. He sounds kind of crazy.
Oh, he's just like a news guy or something.
He is supposed to be a news guy, yeah, but... I mean, I think there's a certain open-endedness to the whole situation of that film. You know, you all can do the same thing. That's pretty much...
Well, it ends with, like, cliffhanger, but it ends with oh, we'll talk about that. He can go about his character.
But you know, the final thing I have to say, at least, is that I wasn't like, F-71 was another film, but you know, F-71 was, at least I remember that it wasn't supposed to be like a confirmation of a continuing universe. For me, F-71 was just like, it's in the same universe and that's that. So I don't think I planned.
He had no ties to South Station at this time until the Looking Glass.
It did not have ties.
The Looking Glass technically didn't have ties to South Station either until.
Yeah. So there's a lot of structurally we have a lot to talk about in terms of the next films are where it gets really, really confusing. So that's really the purpose of this video, is to set everything straight. So yeah, but you can talk about your lovable character.
So F-71, I don't think F-71 is the best film we've done, but F-71 still remains to be my favorite, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
I love the characters. I think both of them are really interesting, and there's lines of information given about both characters that shows that there's more to them than meets the eye, and you don't really get all of it revealed. Like, in one scene, Carter's briefly called an orphan, and there's nothing more given to that, but it makes you think. And Neoliv has a wife and children. He had a normal life once before he went insane. Yeah.
What happened to him?
What happened? Yeah. But
I love that scene.
Neoliv is one of my favorite characters I've played, and I've played so many characters. So it's really a testament to Joseph's writing that I liked Neoliv so much. I think he,
my heart.
I think he intentionally challenged me with the role, because I never played a villain role before. Neoliv is villain backwards, by the way.
Neoliv is villain. That's what I thought of originally, and I originally thought it was stupid, but it ended up being a catalyst for...
Yeah, and it's not something that's too cheesy or distracting, in my opinion, because it still sounds like a cool name, and once you realize it, it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, technically, if you will look at it, I was villain later on, but I was never really a villain.
Yeah.
Because I got possessed.
It was because of Neoliv.
So I was technically a protagonist, and let me just say, Carter... gets abused throughout these films
Yeah,
so hard.
Carter has crap dealt to him. He's a Jesse Pinkman of the Looking Glass
Yeah.
universe.
Captain, man.
That's a good explanation of him.
But
Gatorade me.
with Neoliv, I think what I like about him so much is that he's so unpredictable. You don't know what he's gonna do next.
Cray.
He can seem like in the beginning of the movie, he seemed like a totally normal guy. But then as it goes on, just deeper layers of insanity are revealed to him.
And you think he's insane in F-71, and then you go to the lost tapes and like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, all right.
But
That's a subject for later.
yeah,
Yeah.
But and then you see that he had a normal life, so it's like there's a lot of layers to the character, and I really like that about him. And something that I'm gonna mention now is that in one of the scenes in F-71, you can see the suit that I wore as Ryan Flanagan in the background. The button-up
In the
gray
very
shirt.
ending scene, actually, showing all the
Yeah.
like shots from the house, basically.
Yeah, and it shows my Ryan Flanagan shirt hanging. So keep that in mind. So just as a sort of concluding statement, I think F-71's really good. I think it works well as its own film because it's a very contained scenario, but it also is cool when you think about how it connects to the rest of the world.
And I mean, yeah, that's how it was written, as just a contained
Yeah,
scenario.
and that's what I like about it. I like that
So-
it can be looked at as its own thing. That's why it's probably my favorite.
And that's the same with the South Station. They were both in the same universe, but they're kind of like, that's why it's called an anthology, is because
Yeah.
every film,
Could stand on
Could.
its own.
except the lost tapes probably, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah,
Even the Looking Glass sort of could. So it
Yeah,
has some
to some
characters
extent.
that appear.
But yeah, you can go ahead and talk about your boy
Carter Owens, my boy Carter Owens.
And thank you for all the comments who've been loving on Sammy for some reason.
Yeah,
yeah,
people
I saw
like
that, by the
Sammy,
way.
which
Thank you
is
very
fine
much.
with me. I'm glad they like Sammy.
Well, the whole thing about making my own film, we'll get into that later, too.
Oh, we will. Yeah, we can talk about that.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
We'll
okay.
talk about it.
Anyways.
Anyway, Carter, well, I kind of have to say he's like my favorite character to play because he's in just different versions of him are in the next like
Yeah.
3 films basically.
My name is Dr.
I basically just gave you one character to play forever.
Yeah. I like the black the best, but
Yeah, the black was
overall I just like playing Carter. And I'll talk about that basically, not the whole brief summary. So basically, Carter's just this normal guy, but he's also living at the 3114 Looking Glass. Well, that's false.
That's
actually.
it's his house, yeah.
No, that's,
But it's not.
It's Neoliv's house.
Yeah, it's Neoliv's house. It's not. He's not at 3114 Looking Glass Avenue originally.
Yeah.
He's in a house, his house,
Yeah.
and then Neoliv finds him, and you can talk about like the Neoliv.
Yeah, he's
stuff.
at his house, and then Neoliv finds him, and he basically tries to act like he's.
But Carter thinks that it's his basement. Is it because he's still in like a drunken stupor or something like that? Because he says, "My basement, how awesome."
Well, I mean, it could be his basement, and then Neoliv knocks him out. He just
Well, that's a good point because Neoliv never really says it's his basement.
takes me to like his lab
That-
or whatever
that's-
we'll
yeah.
call it.
That's a good
It
point.
was supposed to be a lab, but it obviously didn't
And
work out that way.
To be fair, we don't necessarily see the other rooms when we're in Neoliv's house. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
In the beginning scene, we do see Carter going into the room that he that is flashing on and off when he goes into Looking Glass, but it's so dark that you couldn't really.
Yeah,
tell
it's
the
2
difference.
different angles
Yeah.
entirely.
Anyway, he meets Neoliv, and Neoliv's acting like this good doctor at first that's trying to save him from not going outside to get contaminated by F-71. Turns out that he used him for his own personal patient, try to spread it, basically,
Yeah.
and test and see if it works for sure. So he ends up knocking me out and taking me to lab, quotations,
Which is a bathroom.
which,
Yeah.
if y'all want to know what's in the bag, it was Mountain Dew voltage.
Yeah.
We used as F-71 because I had to make a makeshift.
Yeah, a makeshift
I wanted to make it a
virus.
blue liquid because, of
Yeah.
course, I wanted to make it a blue liquid.
And that whole sequence in the bathroom was really good.
Yeah,
One of my
so
favorite
it was so
sequences.
good. Yeah.
I do
Carter
enjoy
gets
that.
revealed he was an orphan, and then Neoliv basically It's just
condemns him.
insanity, and he talks about Morbus for the first time.
Yes, Morbus
in the
is
bathroom.
very important.
Morbus
character.
was I can talk a little bit about Morbus. Your character has a special connection to Morbus.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, but Morbus, for those of you who don't know,
My
is
character and technically my real self in Transfigured.
Yeah. So Morbus has a lot of connections. So Morbus in the canon of F-71, Morbus is he is. It's like the Latin word for disease.
I'd debate that Morbus is the most important character out of everyone.
I mean,
he's
yeah,
sort of the connecting force to everything.
He's the connecting force that didn't get connected until the last film.
Yeah.
But Morbus is the Latin word for death or disease, and essentially what I turned Morbus into was the god of disease. So there's this weird, like, mythological sort of setting that I put into the film. It's not supposed to be a mythological horror film. It's just this weird mythology that I put in there. I cannot explain why, but it did turn out for the better.
Also, when said at the end of Transfigured, said, "Gods of death, leave this man." So the gods of death left, but Morbus isn't the god of death, therefore he stayed.
Yeah,
he
he's
was
the god
the-
of disease.
He was the one god that remained.
And of course, that was a line in Transfigured Part 3, which we'll talk about later.
But basically, Neoliv leaves me to get infected with F-71, but I end up escaping.
Well, he's already put it in you.
Yeah. But he left me like to die. Basically.
Yeah.
Go crazy. But I escape and I find this folder. Talks about how he has a wife and a son, and I get the address, which is 14 Looking Glass Avenue.
Yeah.
And that's
Which was
the
his old
explicit.
house.
Yeah, that's the explicit connection.
So I go there and
You will be a
find
sacrifice, and you won't
like this
need
paper
anything else.
that says
And
he
some-
loved his family and blah blah blah, and took them
To the
to the
storm
storm shelter, which that comes into play later on. I go to the storm shelter, and that's probably favorite scene. Might be my favorite scene from all the.
Jane, your wife.
It's hard for me to
Four.
say because the Lost Tapes holds a very, very interesting scene too.
That scene.
But we can talk about.
It's
but
like-
you know, the storm shelter scene is really.
Yeah.
It's a cool scene for sure.
I deeply enjoyed doing that scene, and I think that's probably. I wouldn't say like overall most of my films wouldn't be considered horror by any necessity,
Yeah.
but that was one of the horror aspects of.
And I just have to say the Here's Neoliv scene, I'm proud that I came up with that on my own, and
Yeah.
then we incorporated that because it adds something to like
Yes.
a satirical element. Because
Uh-huh.
Neoliv is
Very
Neoliv is
satirical.
menacing, but he also is very satirical.
He's satirical because his character is so insane that it's like it's satirically insane, but it does add a level. I loved making his character more and more insane because I think that level of insanity is not really explored in a lot of films to its fullest extent. So I basically just gave James the creative freedom to basically go as insane as humanly possible with Neoliv, and I think it turned out for. And yeah, Here's Neoliv was improvised, which probably a lot of people don't know, but that scene, that Here's Neoliv is completely improvised, and I loved that.
And Carter does have F-71, which gets killed when he first enters the storm shelter. Has that same kind of coughing that Neoliv has. Finds the tape there, the video camera that has Neoliv's tapes on it. Kind of the backstory to how Neoliv got involved with F-71 and all that, and how he was giving himself his own dosage. That's how Morbus basically, real or fake in his mind, kind of overtook him.
You never will
That
be.
gets her.
You.
The Here's Neoliv scene knocks him out again. Poor Carter. Carter wakes up in the backyard, and Neoliv's talking about how he's got the most lethal dosage of F-71. And scene that where the camera goes into my head, supposed to be like where the two eyes appear, supposed to be Morbus overtaking me. And like right after that, I get up and I kill Neoliv.
Yes.
I kill.
You kill.
I kill
He
Neoliv.
kills Neoliv.
I killed him.
Yep.
And then at the very ending scene is me talking Morbus, who's
And
inside
obviously
of
that
me.
scene was heavily inspired by Gollum and Smeagol talking.
Yeah. So basically, it's like, I'm not gonna let him take me. I'm like, I'm not gonna take me.
You say go to
I
hell.
say go to hell, and then basically what lets you know he's overtaking me is when he's like, in a lot deeper voice than he was talking. He's like,
That was a fun.
and that's how that film is.
Then after that, like James said previously, it does end
Oh, yeah,
with the
shows the-
radio broadcast. I always forget it ends with that radio broadcast.
And the shots
there are
of the
these
house.
there are these individual shots. One shot shows Brian Flanagan's button up hanging on the chair that Dr. Neoliv was sitting in when he recorded his tapes.
Oh, also
Keep
there
that
was
in
the,
mind.
There was the Morbus eyes in that shot.
Yeah,
Remember that
and
one
then there was
pointed out?
the very end shot where it kind of flickers on and off, and these two lights sort of create the illusion of eyes. So
Yeah.
that
Which it looks like the eyes that you when it goes in my
it
head.
does. They're F-71 provides, especially that ending provides a lot of. I mean, we only just found that when Transfigured 3 released. We
Yeah.
only just found those in like.
We didn't see any of that.
We've
in, like,
accepted
the 5
that-
other marathons we did.
We've accepted that into our canon of like.
Like
that-
basically with each marathon, we found more and more
Yeah.
and more that connected everything.
Which I think just shows the level of like, I don't know, the level of irony to just coincidence to the
Yeah,
whole thing.
Yeah,
There's a very creepy weirdness to the films outside of
so
their
many
context.
unintentional
Yeah.
connections.
So yeah, that is F-71 for you. F-71 doubled the reception of the South Station by quite a bit.
Somehow it was
it's
filmed on an iPad,
Yeah,
which even though
yeah.
it was filmed on the iPad, it had
Better-
double the quality,
way better
of
quality,
South
yeah.
Station.
I mean, it just had the character quality, the writing quality. That was when I got my studio light as well.
Yeah.
And that was when
That's when you use
I knew not to cover up the mic
Yeah.
that was recording, so the audio was. I mean, these first two films and even the Looking Glass had like really bad audio just because I put music over everything. It wasn't until the Looking Glass that Samuel's brother was basically like, "Don't do that," and I was like, "Okay, I won't," and I didn't. End of story. So it was, but yeah, I mean, F-71 still has a much clearer audio quality and like you can understand the plot a lot better. That's just thanks to the plot being sound and like characters being relatable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the film did lose its traction eventually, but it still remains in my top 10 most popular videos. And I mean, it was just all thanks to the success of the South Station that like obviously a longer film with more depth and better quality would get that better
characters,
reception.
better writing, better everything.
And this was at a time when my YouTube channel was like extremely active, so like all this stuff that we were doing was adding to like the algorithm and stuff. And this was when
we were doing all the challenges and everything.
this was when YouTube's algorithm didn't suck balls like it does now. But anyways, after F-71, we didn't exactly turn around and make another film as
No.
quickly.
Creation was. We have to talk about that.
Was that before?
And that was in between F7.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was.
Like, oh, I'm working on the big one. Let's
We
make a short
we
little
took
one.
a break.
wait.
We took a break from the big films.
And that comes into play later too. Creation.
Yeah, we took a break from the big films, and we went. And Joseph wanted to do some shorts. I know he had
Right.
he had 3 shorts in mind originally, right?
Yes.
Like there was Creation.
Originally, I was thinking about Creation, Nightmare, and Darkness.
Yeah.
And so, but eventually, I just ended up putting it all into one film.
Stylus. Create.
So, yeah, Creation actually, this one commenter said, "Can't wait for this episode." Creation actually was gonna get turned into a full film, and I don't know if you all knew that.
No, I didn't.
I was planning to turn it into a full film, but I just couldn't figure out what to do to make it into a full film.
Yeah, it was fine as a short film.
So I made this short as a teaser for the full film, but it ended up not really working out that way.
What kind of worked out for the best though in the end?
And
It's like
I'm
this
pretty sure creation
little-
after.
Really?
Yeah, because the Looking Glass was in April. Yeah, April 3rd.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Was.
the Looking Glass. But
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, but creation is a short, so I mean, we can talk
True.
about it, but there. I mean, James won't have a
Well,
say
we
in
have
this
to
other
talk
than
about
talking
it 'cause
about.
it comes into play.
But it
in
does, yeah. In
Lost
Tapes.
Tapes.
Lost
That's what I
Tapes,
said. I said the Lost
But I
Tapes.
mean, there isn't much of a story around creation other than that. I was getting way better at filming, and essentially what creation boils down to was me filming Samuel going insane as Silas
so was
Gray.
the voice Morbus?
The voice
Just
was
gonna point
Morbus,
that
yes.
out there?
The voice was.
Which it wasn't connected at the time.
It was
but
not
we turned
connected.
it.
No. So the canon voice is Morbus.
Yeah.
And the voice is my voice,
Which makes it work.
and that'll be connected
It's basically
later.
just me with this old computer. I don't know, just going insane basically the whole entire short.
So the original intention behind creation was that you were. I think you possibly remember that you were actually supposed to be typing this stuff, and I was gonna like overlay black screen with like actual typing.
Oh, yeah.
But I could not. I still can't to this day figure out how to do that. So I ended up making it actually part of the film that you were trying to type it. It wasn't working, so you wrote everything down, and all that audio and stuff like that ended up being really satisfying to listen. So I mean, there's not a whole lot to really say other than
You
that.
just basically have to remember that Morbus is the voice and I'm Silas in that.
His name was Silas Gray, so
Yeah.
I mean,
And I always found it as a cool little metaphor for like the frustration of the creation process. Like when you're creating, and I'm sure you had some sort of intention of like it being a commentary on how you write films. Like you're getting this feeling of that you need to create something, but you don't know what to do. So
Yeah.
it's like a writer's block metaphor too,
This-
in the form of a horror short.
I don't know. This film was intended to be. I don't know. It was after the Looking Glass.
114.
Yeah, not bad
it's-
at all.
For a 4-minute film, that's actually pretty
6
good.
likes, no likes in that one either.
So the interesting thing about creation is that, yes, it was intended to be a teaser. To this day, I don't think it would work as a full, just because of the brevity of the plot and all that stuff. But what I'm trying to do is distract you as I try to remember what I was going to say originally, which I forgot what I was going to say
We're
originally.
just going to the look.
Yeah,
but-
I don't think there's much else to say about creation.
Yeah.
I mean, still, I think just like shot-wise and stuff, I love all the shots in the film. That there's this one particular sequence where like it all just flows nicely from him leaving his room to going downstairs. As a filmmaker, that was extremely whatever.
That's a cool.
I mean, it's not like the magnum opus, but you know, it was a fun little thing to make, and of course we made it canon because of course we made it canon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so funny story, and we'll start with the class. Really, the Looking Glass started as this little teaser that nobody watched, basically. I mean,
It was basically me sending him messenger audio of me saying, "What do you see?"
so Sammy sent me audio of him saying, "What do you see?"
I remember seeing this trailer and being so confused as to what the heck you were
I
doing.
remember making this video and being confused as to what the heck I was doing because
Do you see?
I knew this was a teaser for like the new short film coming 28. I knew this was the teaser for the next film. I hadn't even like started on the idea for the next. So you can already see that like there was this year-long break between F-71 and The Looking Glass, and this was just because I didn't want to just turn around and write another film in 6 months. I wanted to take a little bit more time. And
it was a longer film anyway.
it ended up being 31 minutes, which
Plus, it had more characters.
it was my longest. It is still my longest
Was
scripted
it supposed
film.
to have like 2 more characters
Yes,
or 1 more
it was
character?
supposed to have one more character.
And this was around the time when I was pretty college
Yeah.
stuff. I was in a play, and it was
Yeah.
just all sorts of stuff
This
going on.
this film is
And
what
that
I'd
started
say.
working.
This
Yeah.
film is what I'd say is my unmitigated disaster of attempting to make a film release. So
Oh, there was
How
so
many
much
drafts?
that went
Had to
down.
cut like
the original script
20
was
pages or something.
the original script was about 50 pages. And
You had to cut like
one of
20,
James's friends, I drafted him to play in it, and he had to drop out. The first of many disasters was the fact that that James's friend dropped out at the last minute. And so, oh gosh. And so he had to I had to go back to the writing table. That was only the time I had the first draft. So the first teaser trailer is just you walking down the street. I never actually made a teaser trailer with all the
Trailer of me walking down the street?
Yeah. It's just introducing everyone. So
I don't remember that.
yeah, so it you know, I'm trying to put this into words how weird it is because we did some filming, but really that first day of filming with Chad and with JP, it was not really. I could already tell that I needed to do some work on it, and you know JP had to leave the film, which was unfortunate. So I had to cut about 13 or 14 pages of content that involved JP being in it. So that took it down to already like 44 pages. And so it was at 50 and it took it down to like 43 pages. So maybe like 7 pages of content. And so already I was trying to restructure the film. That was my second draft. And I went into what every writer goes into, the writer's block. I went into the writer's block, and you're correct in that during that writer's block, I took a break from writing this film and wrote Creation, and then Creation came up later. But yeah, I wrote Creation in a time when I was in writer's block, and I just wanted to make something short just to make it. So yeah, and then it ended up being 8 drafts before I finally got the final draft. So I wrote 8 drafts of this film, and it ended up going from 50 pages to 31 pages.
Yeah, there
So
was
many schedule conflicts.
Yeah.
There was a time when the ending was totally different, I remember.
yes.
And I remember me and Samuel both being like, does this ending really make sense, like, with what you're building up here? How does this ending work? And then, I mean, it slowly came to, like, oh, we're going to have to do something else for the...
Yeah, it just like, it was unfortunate because, like, we were so close to being able to start, and then that ending didn't make sense. So that was the 8th draft when I finally just was like, you know,
And
we
how
gotta
many
make.
weekends did you actually have filmed?
We did 4 weekends, 2 weekends in a row, and then we took a break, and then 2 more weekends.
The most challenging part of this film was working around everyone's schedules, because I had different times, so did Samuel, and then the other 2 people for Joseph's film.
And Chad
3
had
people.
3
other-
people, yeah. Chad had all sorts of... I mean, Chad was probably the easiest to work with, because he had a more open schedule, and then Brandon...
That's why he was there every week almost.
Yeah, and then and he had to be because he was a main
Yeah, he's
character.
there 2 weeks out.
And then Brandon and Hunter were a little bit much harder to work around because of their schedule.
Yeah, it ended up being that Michael and Chad. This is kind of the first plot point that I'm gonna kind of say. In the Looking Glass, there was supposed to be this scene in between. So there's a scene when James and Chad are talking in the forest next to the stream. Right after that, before the scene where Sammy is talking to Morbus, and he's talking to Morbus as the Black. So Sammy's character is now Morbus in this film. And so, or Sammy's character is the Black, infected by Morbus. So in between those scenes, before you were gonna be talking to Morbus, Sammy's character, the Black, was supposed to kill Kane and Evan St. Peter. There was supposed to be that scene, and that was a scene I wanted to do that scene so badly, but we could never get the schedule to work.
I was only there with guy who plays.
Michael. No, Kane. Yeah, Kane is Michael.
Yeah.
Brandon
We're
and
only
Michael. Brandon and Michael. Same name.
We
same
were there
person.
that one week. He was there able to come the one weekend, but the next weekend when I came, he wasn't able to come. Or
Hunter.
Yeah.
They
So-
both only were able to come one weekend to do
Yeah.
it. So we only were able to do essentially one scene for each of them.
Yeah, and that really, I wanted to give their characters more time to develop. I mean, their characters, for at least for me as a screenwriter, were already really well developed based on what they did. But I wanted to give them a chance to, because, you know, they're established as these minions of the Black. And unfortunately, the final film of The Looking Glass never really makes that apparent. And that's kind of the sucky part, is that you never get this sense of, like, your lordship, essentially, over them.
I mean, there is one scene when he's talking to Chad and he says, like, don't think I'll treat you the same or go as easy on you as my companions did. But that was just a very
and he also says,
brief
like,
implication.
I only had Kane and Saint alive, which makes him like.
And he's less.
But-
now I see why they wanted to kill you.
I think the film missed that point where you assert your utter dominance and kill them. But in the canon, those guys are dead now. So Kane and Evan St. Peter are canonically dead because in the canon he killed them. I just couldn't. It just couldn't happen. You know.
I mean, what's really good is that the important characters still stayed important. So Chad still got all the time he needed.
Yeah.
And man, Chad was absolutely superb in this film.
Yeah.
He's a better actor than all three of us combined.
Yeah,
I'd say.
basically.
He's so good in the film. He really sells all the emotion so naturally, and I think he was a great character for this film, just to sort of make it its own thing, because he was very sympathetic and you understood him. And then we got to keep Samuel's importance as the Black, which I think Samuel really relished the role in this one.
Yeah.
You could tell he was having fun with it.
I think there is no doubt in my mind that the Black is Sam. Definitely your best performance, and there's little known that the Black is heavily inspired by Rian Johnson's interpretation of Kylo Ren, and it's this interesting situation where
Basically, I'm still Carter, but I'm still the Black. Like I still show signs of being Carter.
Yeah, you're both of them at the same time.
But the Black is another name that you should be familiar with. And, you know, The Looking Glass is just a well-developed film because this is the one we had the most time to work with. And that's what made
it. Still wasn't enough time in the end.
It's never enough time for a film.
Yeah, it was I mean, for me and Samuel, it was tough sometimes, but I could tell for Joseph in particular, it was very stressful.
Yeah.
His most stressed out time making the film.
It was, just like how much went wrong in like the scheduling and the development. It was just, and like, there were a lot of editing things that went wrong, and that's why the whole film is basically covered in music. This is the first time where I had to use music to cover a lot of problems, and like, I still think there are a lot of shots that I would definitely fix, and just a lot of post-production stuff that I would definitely fix.
It's a little bit awkward to see a dog blanket in a scene with Chad tied up and Brandon talking to him.
I don't know.
So
But you want to talk about your character.
Yeah, I'll talk about my character and then briefly touch on the plot, and Samuel will touch on the plot too. So my character in this is named Garrett.
Fillion.
Garrett Fillion.
Flanagan. Fillion. I
said it again. I said Fillion.
I said it again.
Listen to me.
I was the one that got it wrong. But Garrett Fillion, who is the uncle of Chad's character.
And Chad's
name is
Jacob Flanagan.
I mean Fillion.
Now you have me saying it. Now you have me saying it. You said best, boy.
I thought you were doing that on purpose. But so my character for a brief time in the script is called the Figure, because you don't really know who he is. You don't know if he's a villain or a good guy. At the beginning of the film, you see my character finding Carter on the ground, which is very important.
Very?
I'm so sorry.
Very, very important.
But I find Carter lying on the ground. And I think what's cool about this scene is that it intentionally has parallels to F-71. Like me finding Samuel passed out and taking him somewhere else to make sure he's safe. But it's a totally different scenario. Instead, I'm the good guy and Samuel's the villain. Well, sort of the villain.
But you don't know that till like it's fun.
Yeah, but you figure out eventually that he's Carter. We don't know this until Samuel in the bed when I take him to a room. Bed. When I take you to the bed, and you talk, and you start flinching and saying like the disease, F-71. And that's when you figure out, oh, this is Carter, and the figure is basically trying to figure out Carter. He's like fascinated by him.
Figure.
Yeah, he's fascinated by him, but he can't really figure out who he is, which is a big important plot point of the movie. Is that I'm trying my hardest to figure out who Carter is, but I can't ever put my finger on it.
And you can basically tell from jump that I am not Carter anymore with those shots of the way my face is like so serious and looking at him from those behind shots.
You can tell you can tell the black is.
And I tried to kill him.
You can tell the black is a person of great resolve and purpose, rather than Carter's just kind of meandering uncertainty.
But my character eventually has to get rid of the black. He doesn't kill him because he doesn't want to, which is a bit of a flaw in his character. He can't ever get rid of him because he's too intrigued by him, which causes the black to do a lot of bad things, and the figure has to deal with that. Eventually, the next time, the figure doesn't appear for a long time. I'm more of a side role in this film, but which I liked, actually, that I got more of a side role, because it just made my character more interesting, just not knowing as much about him. And then
You all remember that blue coat that boy has on in this film.
Yes,
it comes into play later.
I wear a blue jean coat in this. First time wearing that. Anyway, yeah, remember that prop for sure. The next time I appear is when I find Jacob Fillion / Chad tied up, and he's with the black, and I untie Chad. And
but
then,
it kind of shows you, like, it kind of shows that his character is watching over him. Because in those scenes where
I forgot about that.
Jacob is walking, he's like kind of looking at him from all these different
Yeah,
shots.
so I'm constantly watching.
I was glad that Chad got to be there, or you and Samuel and Chad all that. I wanted at least you three to be in the same room.
Yeah.
Because I wanted that moment of realizing that the Black and Garrett have a history behind them.
And it is sort of cool when we first see each other, and the Black has his reaction of like, "Oh, a happy reunion" or whatever. It's
he's
just
like, he's like, "Well, isn't this we've all been?"
Yeah,
doing?"
That's kind of the first part where it's like, "Oh, they're family."
Yeah.
And then the next scene reveals that they are family.
And then there's the stream scene, which, remember, we talk at a stream. At a water stream, a stream of water.
Call it a creek.
Which is in our local park, and we...
Now sponsored.
And I basically talk about, I talk about the history of the Looking Glass.
Wait.
What?
In interrogations where he's tied up, what am I talking about? Wait, because I'm in the one line I say, what am I talking about?
You say your happy family reunion, and then
Chad doesn't know. Is sort of confused by that, and he doesn't know yet that I'm.
But he says at the creek, he's like, Garrett, like when y'all first wake up. So
the part where he's getting freed up is sort of a stressful sort of scene. So there's not a lot of time for.
I think Chad does know who I am in that scene, but he doesn't really get the time to register it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
Later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that it's a kind of fast-paced scene where him saying Uncle Garrett would be like a crucial second. Where
Chad could even be thinking he's hallucinating, because the Black has basically sort of mentally tortured him with saying like he's a psychopath and stuff like that.
Rip him.
Which that's another cool idea of the movie.
What the line is.
It's like insanity is relative
I will rip you
to the Black. Like he can convince other people that they're insane too.
Yeah.
feed you to once.
But so I'll go a little quicker. So the Figure talks to Ryan about the history of the house, Looking Glass Avenue, which
Talks to Ryan.
or Carter.
Jacob?
No, Jacob. I keep on saying
Carter,
different.
Jacob, Ryan.
Carter, Jacob, Ryan. There's so many different characters to keep track of, but
Not really.
yeah, there are. But I talked to Jacob about the house, and then I talked to him about Black and the fact that Carter Owens and the Black are the same, and I say that I don't think they have a split personality disorder, because I think that the Black is a distinct personality from Carter, and they are, really. They are, as we figure out in the next scene. And then at the end, I go back to the house, me and Chad go back to the house, and then Black appears, and we basically Chad tries to convince the Black that we can end the horrors of the Looking Glass together, because so many things have happened there. And this is the subtle references back to South Station and F-71. Like, we subtly referenced those two horrors, like of Titus and Ryan, and then of Neoliv and Carter. And Chad is saying we can end all these horrors now, but Samuel basically decides no and kills Chad. And then I go and kill Samuel, and at this point he doesn't really seem to care anymore because he got what he wanted. He basically won. And even though he died...
Morbus one.
Morbus won.
Yeah.
My character never wins.
Yeah, and Samuel basically has to die because he knows that's what's going to happen.
Let me just tell you that basically none of the films have a happy ending.
No.
Except Trent.
Well, but and then the film ends on a pretty depressing note with me just going to and leaning up against a wall and basically sobbing because I know that it's over, but it's not really over in the right way.
Yeah.
And Samuel's going somewhere, so
I mean, that's just about all really needs to be known.
yeah, I mean, I'll just say that The Looking Glass was a really, despite all the problems of The Looking Glass that occurred, it was such a cool project, and it was very ambitious.
Yeah,
and
that's one way to look
quite
at it.
quite ambitious because of all the performances we had. But I think it's such a cool film.
And I mean, the build up to the film, I mean, obviously, just looking at it right now, you can see that, I guess, I was just happy to find out that all my work wasn't for nothing. Because the film did retroactively explode in its first week.
Yeah,
it was the
it got
first
very
video.
popular.
It's the first video I had that reached 100 views in its first week. And, I mean, right now it's sitting at just about 370 views, which is, it's like my third most popular video of all time. And I just think, like, the scale of the film and the build up, I released like 3 trailers for it, so there was a lot of like knowledge that it was going to happen. And I don't know, to me it was just kind of cool that there was something that actually a decent amount of people were looking forward to.
Yeah.
So I released it on a Friday the 13th because of course I did. So yeah. But I mean, the Looking Glass holds a very special place in my heart just because it was a lot of work that was worth it in the end. Not just because of the views, but just because of how, like you said, the scale of it and like the amount of characters and like, I don't know when another film of mine is going to have that many characters, just because of the scale of classes and stuff I have to take now. But the fact that this exists already right now is, to me, I just enjoyed making a film with so many different and unique characters. Like Sammy has scratched himself.
All right.
Well, bloody mess.
Guess we're gonna move on to Transfigured Part 2 now.
So, yes. Next up, we have the longest break between scripted films, at least.
Yeah.
Because after this, I mean, again, it was about another 6 months between these two, but we decided we wanted to make another Transfigured. Yeah, Creation is scripted, but it's a short, and we already talked about it.
Scripted.
Anyways,
I don't know if you can.
so Transfigured Part 2, like I said earlier, we didn't think that Transfigured Part 2 was going to happen, but it did. I mean, I think you were the one, James,
I was the one that said that I wanted to do it because I was like, ooh, I had such a cool concept for this. I was the one that came up with the concept for this one, which I was very happy about because it worked. And then Samuel and Joseph expanded on it even more. But I was basically like, ooh, what if we made another Transfigured and made it very meta? So what if we are still our characters? We're still Samuel, Joseph, and James.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
They're in the... Go. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So I briefly came up with a concept. Joseph and Samuel will be back in a minute, but I came up with the concept that that it was to be a metatextual thing where me, Joseph, and Samuel are still our characters, so we're still playing ourselves, although a little bit of an exaggerated version of ourselves, so we're not playing exactly who we are in real life, but we're still acting pretty normally like how we would, just maybe playing it up a little bit because it is improv. But the idea was that we would, in this film, we would be back at Looking Glass Avenue. We would be in the garage, and in this film, we find out that well, no, we'll get into plot later. I'll just briefly say what my concept was. That we would become characters we were in other films. So sounds weird, but so I would be like at random times later on in the film, I'd be becoming like Neoliv. I'd be acting like Neoliv, or I'd be acting like Ryan Flanagan, and then Samuel would be acting like Carter, or he'd be acting like the Black, or maybe even Titus, and then Joseph, since he wasn't really a character in any of the films besides one, he would instead be taking on this role of this insane director in a way, where he'd be like talking about how he created us, and that that trying to figure out how to explain this, that we were his creations and that we weren't real. So it was a very odd concept, but it was a cool one. I really liked the meta idea of it, that we were these characters in these films, and then that we would eventually find the films on Joseph's YouTube channel.
Ow! Okay, we're back.
Sammy got shot in the hand. I'm so sorry. That we'd find... Ooh.
Sammy got shot in the hand.
That we'd find the films on Joseph's YouTube channel and not know that they existed, but eventually discover some weird things. So that was my concept, essentially.
Yeah, so Transfigured Part 2 ended up being an absolutely ridiculously, unbelievably insane film.
Yeah, it was insanity.
We kind of lost it towards the middle of the film, and it does turn into this really laughably hilarious film, but it is satirical in all the best ways, just because, like, all three of us kind of reflect that Dr. Neoliv level of insanity. We just kept on going with it, and it just gets better and better as it goes on.
Also, all the Transfigureds are improv. We
Yes.
just have ideas. Like, all the dialogue, there's no written anything. It's
Yeah.
an idea and a concept for 2 and 3, and everything that happens is all improv.
So yeah, there's not a whole... There's, like you said, no script, all improv. I don't think you get the... I don't think you grasp quite clearly that everything is improvised. We come up with the idea. Everything is improvised.
What's impressive is that we came up with 35 minutes of content for this one.
Oh, that's impressive? That's
and
impressive?
Then I'm just saying.
So, yeah, Transfigured Part 2 was a freaking absolute blast to make. It was fun. It was a fun time for sure.
We weren't sure what each other was gonna do, so we just had to go along with it. Basically.
I was never normal in this film.
No.
Right from the jump.
Samuel was pretty much I got insane about halfway through.
Yeah, Samuel lasted. I always say this about this film. Samuel lasted for about an entire 2 minutes.
Not
James lasted for like maybe 10. I lasted for maybe like 15.
30 seconds.
And
Clicking the light.
yeah,
right
in
next to
30
James.
in 30 seconds you're like.
And
I
he's
mean,
like, what?
and there's that one great scene in this film where Joseph places the camera on top of my dresser in my
Oh
room,
my God.
and then I sort of get in front of it, breaking the fourth wall, and Joseph
like-
and Samuel are basically going absolutely nuts in the background.
Killing myself with a 2x4.
And then James goes like, "Well, this is fun,
Yeah.
isn't it?"
Which
Anyway.
is this is something that Neoliv would enjoy.
It's one of those hilariously memorable scenes.
But what is important about this film is that basically this film confirms in the world of the Looking Glass / Transfigured that these characters that we inhabit are real, and they're just as real as we are, and they're extensions of our personality.
So essentially, the characters that are in the films are us.
And
Yes.
they in Transfigured Part 1, they were the shadows, basically.
And so the shadows become... And it's interesting because I just now thought of this, that the shadows, the characters didn't exist. But
Yeah,
now
not
they
at that
do
time,
exist.
and now they do. Now they're
And
fully
so the
formed.
characters were shadows in the first one, but now they actually exist. And so there's a lot of intrigue with...
And without the shadows and the whole demon thing, basically you can't tie in Morbus the rest of it. Transfigured.
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
Like, it's the shadows and that kind of ending scene that incorporates it all connect.
And so Transfigured Part 2 ends on this crazy little cliffhanger where Samuel's just clicking through a bunch of channels and
We don't really know what happens after that.
yeah, we don't know what happens because it just cuts off after that. And
Very
the
similarly
reason
to the first part
the
of
reason it
Transfigured.
cut off was because our dad came home and we just had to cut it off. And so Samuel was just sitting there awkwardly scrolling through channels as our dad came in.
And I think we were probably running out of ideas at this
Yeah.
point anyway, so it was probably it was a great way to end off the
It's
film
a
with
good-
the menacing little clicking sound.
Yeah, this crazy little scene happens right at the end, and that's actually a good climactic scene to end. So I think it was definitely good that it was definitely a nice little manifest destiny that Daddy came in at that
Yeah,
moment.
and we
because-
tried to incorporate some plot into this one, but it was really hard when we were
Yeah.
going crazy all the time.
Yeah.
Like I tried to stop every once in a while and just say some things, but really this film was more just a way for us to go off the rails and just really delve into the insanity of the Looking Glass world.
Yeah, there are a lot of connections. Like, there's a specific scene where James and Samuel specifically reflect the characters they played, because James goes up
In the
to that
bathroom.
little. James goes up to that little our porch before we get into the backyard, and he acts like he's aiming the gun at Carter, which
Yeah.
is something he did in the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
And then in the bathroom, Sammy is
I'm doing
sitting.
something in the backyard too. I'm doing F-71.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
I
were
can't
kind
remember
of.
what it was.
I think you were maybe saying like,
It's
Sammy.
like you failed me,
like
right?
you
I think I was
failed.
doing
Yeah,
that
the films
thing.
kept
something like
blending together. Like sometimes, like in a scene where I was saying like Samuel was Titus, Samuel was
That's my brother
acting
Titus. I'm your brother.
I'm your brother,
I'm your
man.
brother, though.
Yeah. And then we made a connection to creation as well, with Samuel
Yeah.
kind of burying his head into the monitor.
Let me in.
Let me in.
So yeah, it is.
What a film.
It's weird. My channel had the name Pixel Knife at the time, so
Yeah.
like, Pixel Knife is you, and then Infinite Productions. What is that? Some sort of MTV? all that
I don't know
stuff.
what. And I mean, it's also the continuing saga of Joseph filming insects up
Yeah.
close for
Oh my
whatever reason.
gosh.
I don't know why. I don't know why I had such
Look
a.
at that little locust, that cricket.
I don't know why I had such an obsession with that.
And about that millipede.
So yeah, that's Transfigured Part 2.
There's not a whole lot other than that. Just we quite literally went insane, and that's
And we
that.
became our characters.
And so, yeah,
Oh, boy.
after Transfigured Part 2, I hit the largest writer's block I've ever hit in my life, and couldn't write anything for about 4 months. And I will say that the film that eventually turned into The Lost Tapes is probably the hardest time I've had with trying to come up with a film, because I was intending the Looking Glass to be the finale. I mean, you all know that I was intending that to be the finale, but as I was trying to create essentially another IP for the next series,
There's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, me and Sam, we all agreed that. Well, we all agreed that it seemed there was something missing.
and I mean, the idea of this film didn't really come to fruition until 2019. So there was a whole year where like we essentially thought of nothing, and then Transfigured happened, and then we continued to think of nothing, and we were just in this limbo. I was in this limbo of like, what am I gonna write? And then we just started thinking like, especially towards like the second quarter of 2019, we were like, basically I approached everyone, was like, what are we gonna freaking do for our next film? Because we gotta have a film out this year, because we've been doing yearly releases, and like we have this. I was like, I've been trying to create something new, but honestly, why don't we do something else with this Looking Glass world and try to make 2019 like the wrap up of everything? And so we did kind of agree. So I had about 20 different names for the film, but the ultimate idea that I came up with was that Carter Owens comes back wakes up from when he is turned into Morbus at the end of F-71. The Lost Tapes takes up exactly after the ending of F-71. And Carter Owens essentially...
Made after the Looking Glass. Order, though, before the Looking Glass, after F-71.
Yeah, so canonically...
Basically explaining how I turned into the Black and what happened to James's character.
Neoliv.
And though
because Neoliv is mysteriously absent from the Looking Glass.
And though it takes place in between Looking Glass and F-71, it only makes sense to watch it after you watch Looking Glass, because it sort of makes you appreciate both films.
Mm-hmm. And it fills in a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, you watch Looking Glass, it answers a lot of questions.
Yeah.
About who's who.
So it is this prequel, sort of, but it's also this essentially pivotal connection to every film. And I mean, that even becomes more pivotal when you look at Transfigured Part 3. But The Lost Tapes is a little bit of a shorter film, but it does... The ultimate idea I came up with was that Carter finds these tapes, and he meets with Neoliv again. And so when Samuel said earlier that Carter kills Neoliv, he actually doesn't. Neoliv actually ends up being alive.
Well, I am dead, but then Morbus brings me back.
But Morbus brings him back to hunt down Carter Owens, essentially. And so it's this... But then Neoliv is getting haunted by Morbus, so it's this essentially double haunting. Like, once again, you don't know who the protagonist is, if there even is one. And it ends up being this wild goose chase into the Looking Glass one more time, and Carter ends up finding out that Neoliv is alive, and so Neoliv essentially reveals to Carter who he is, and Neoliv reveals that Neoliv is in fact Ryan Flanagan.
Yep. And
that is kind of the huge twist, is that everything from the beginning has been connected. And that's kind of the big point of this hour-and-a-half long podcast, is that the Lost Tapes is the most important thing, and everything is connected, and Ryan Flanagan is Jack Neoliv.
And I reveal that I'm actually Silas.
Yeah.
Through flashbacks,
Yeah.
It's revealed that Carter is also Silas, and Silas
because
wasn't.
At the end of Creation, it's just me typing again, but one of the scenes in Lost Tapes is, while I'm typing, Morbus comes, I don't get to see. Creation just ends with me typing, which that gets revealed also.
And the reason, and I guess we can get into plot now. First of all, while I said that F-71 is my favorite film, I think Lost Tapes is the best film. It actually benefits from being short, because it's so concise. Mm-hmm. All the plot points are clearly established, I think, in this best writing, and I think our best acting as well, because I made the choice for this one to play Neoliv a little more subtly than I did in F-71, like not making him as crazy, except in one scene, because he goes absolutely insane in one scene.
But it makes sense for that because he's just now going insane.
Yeah, but
in that
I
scene.
don't make him laugh as much as he did before. I try to make him more just a bit more normal. Because there's actual stakes for his character in this. Because he finds out from Morbus when Morbus brings him back that his family is alive. According to Morbus, they're alive. So he thinks if he brings Carter to Morbus that his family will be safe and he'll be able to be with them again. And that's really what made him go insane in the first place, is that he lost his family. But so there's actual stakes for him, which makes him a little bit more sympathetic than this. But Neoliv essentially goes back into the house, the Looking Glass house, and he takes Carter, and I love the scene where he takes Carter because he's like, this looks familiar, huh? Because it's like a direct parallel of a scene in F-71 where I narc out. Something that Neoliv does quite often. Narc Carter out.
And this also tests what I say about Carter. Was he getting knocked out, getting kicked?
Yeah,
I
Carter
get stomped by
Carter gets the
Morbus.
crap dealt to him.
I think Carter was. I think there's probably a reason why Carter was so happy when he was finally killed in the Looking Glass.
Yeah, he was like, finally.
It makes you feel for my character the whole thing, like, wow, this guy can't get a break.
Yeah,
he gets possessed too.
He really can't, and like that's kind of the benefit of the Looking Glass, is that he finally just gets his release.
Yeah.
But then once I knock Carter out, he wakes up, and I basically tell him, like, I reveal to him who I really am.
You've missed some stuff.
Yeah, I reveal to him who I am by showing him a flashback, and in this flashback, I'm Ryan Flanagan.
The flashback is basically what you didn't get to see at the end of South Station.
Yeah, at the end of South Station.
So basically, Titus went to kill Ryan. Ryan blocks it. Ryan kills Titus.
And I become Neoliv.
And he becomes Neoliv.
And basically, Morbus enters me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I become Neoliv. I have an alter ego like Samuel does. Samuel becomes Black, and I become Neoliv. And I sort of laugh at it. I say, that's funny, because it's villain spelled backwards. And that's when I go suitably insane. And then there's a scene which Samuel has already touched on, where it reveals that he's Silas. Silas Gray.
Glow stick.
Yeah, and then there's a glow stick scene, which is probably the best scene we've ever filmed.
I mean, I had that. I just don't know. It was one of the parts where you had to suspend your disbelief the most.
Like, where did he get the glow stick from? But who cares? It was a good scene.
Cinematically, it's one of those scenes that I always wanted to do, but at this point, I have the knowledge of lighting and camera shots.
We had one shot at
exactly.
Because once the thing's cracked,
it's gone.
Lit.
So we had one chance to get that nice, sweet crack audio of the look
shake
and the shake. We had one chance, and
it's not also while he's filming it, he can't say, put it up to your face. I just kind of had to guess where to put it with perfect lighting.
Yeah, and it looks so good.
And guess what? We freaking nailed it the first try, and
there was no other tries. Otherwise, the scene was gone.
It just felt so good to nail that, and it was just such a perfect scene in my opinion.
It's probably my favorite.
It's definitely from a filmmaker's perspective.
Well, it's not my favorite. It's my favorite shot.
Yeah, it's my favorite shot I've made for sure. So yeah, that's and the Lost Tapes. You can talk about the ending because that kind of pertains to your character.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So after all that happens, back in the backyard again, and basically, I'm free, supposedly, because Neoliv finds out that family's not actually alive, and that Morbus is lying to him.
Mm-hmm.
Neoliv ends up killing himself so he can give all this because he has nothing to live for anymore now that his family's dead. And Carter's leaving, and then this Joseph's character appears, but she plays Morbus in this.
Yeah.
And he basically says, I'm not finished with you yet, and knocks me out, and then he enters me again. I wake up, and the ending of this is the beginning of the Looking Glass, but it shows that I've actually become the Black base.
It's another really great shot, my second favorite. Where
I'm kind of walking, and Morbus is under this light, but he's in the shadows, and I just put the grin on my face, I'm basically possessed. It lets you know.
It's that nice little show don't tell moment that is always
And I
appreciated.
basically like this was all Morbus's plan, like
Yeah.
the entire Looking Glass, because he has me plant myself on the concrete for
Garrett
Garrett to find, yeah. And
Which
I
is
love,
really cool.
and then his shadow comes over Samuel, which that scene actually unironically gives me chills because it's so well done.
Because the great irony of it is you're the one filming that scene, James.
Yeah.
And it's your shadow that shows up, but like by some miracle, the camera didn't show up. So it just looks like another human shadow.
Yeah.
And so that scene is just
camera's like engulfed in his.
that is another one that is another scene that I really am glad ended up working out.
The Lost Tapes was probably my favorite to make, just because it's so important in connecting everything.
I mean, yeah, just story-wise, it was like really.
Yeah, I liked thinking about it all, and it was just so cool how everything really came
It was
together.
very story-rich. Like, I think we could have made it longer, but I think making it longer would have been filler.
Yeah.
And, you know, with how much
It kept you like it didn't make you into it the whole entire time.
Right.
And I mean, like, just by the fact this podcast has been an hour and 35 minutes, and we haven't even talked about the actual ending. It shows just how much thought ended up going into this whole series, and we haven't even talked about Transfigured Part 3, another film that we didn't really think would happen, but you'll not be surprised to find out that James was yet again the one who wanted to do the finale of Transfigured. So we came up with the entire.
No, I would say we did know we were going to do a final part, but we really didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Everyone, this was the most planned out
Yes.
one,
Yes.
but it still everything said in it and the
And
action
all the
was all
action.
improv.
We
We were at Buffalo Wild Wings, and for literally 2 hours we did nothing but talk about ideas for this. And
We
finding
basically
things
came
that
up with
connected.
like some story beats.
Yeah.
Because there are some. This one had to be a little more structured because it was wrapping everything up, literally everything.
Yeah.
Not only from the Looking Glass Anthology, but also from the Transfigured trilogy.
Like we had the ending that we wanted to end on. It's just how we were gonna go about ending it improv wise.
And I sort of came up with the concept of that this wouldn't be
Ending.
the ending end all be all. That though this Looking Glass Anthology ended, our characters in the Transfigured series are still going to be around.
Yeah.
So
Which is end of the Transfigured. It gets revealed that.
Yeah, so Transfigured Part 3 has this sort of fake out ending where we're all like, yay, we won, we're victorious.
Which we did.
Yeah,
in
we
a
did.
sense, we freed ourselves.
We did
from
free
all
ourselves.
Looking Glass stuff.
So yeah, it's essentially a sort of recreation of like if you've seen It Chapter 2 where all the characters go to find their little trinkets. It's essentially that, but in our own little interpretation. All of us have to find these items that are important to our characters in the movies. So James has to find that jean jacket that he wore as Garrett. Sammy ends up finding the videotape. And the videotape was what showed Neoliv in F-71, and that's what showed how Neoliv kind of went insane in F-71.
He finds the knife from the South Station, so we found something from one of the...
And there's this ingenious scene where, like, we put all three of them on top of each other.
Yeah.
And essentially what Transfigured Part 3 is us realizing that... Because, like, the beginning plot is, like, Samuel is, like, driving in his truck. I always wanted to do a car shot. And, like, we finally had the creative flair, I guess. I don't know how...
This was by far, I think, our best improv.
Yes.
We got better and better with each film.
Improvisationally, this one absolutely knocks...
Of course, it was a little easier to improv in 3 because we had ideas. In the first one, it was
with
spitballing.
With part 1, it was spitballing. With part 2... though we did better on that one, it didn't really have a coherent plot.
Yeah.
In part 3, all of us are serious. We're very straight man in this one. No real insane moments in it. And
friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're all very serious about, like, we have to, because we wanted to put a weight to this, because this was going to be the end of the Looking Glass trilogy,
Yeah.
which we were all legitimately sad about, because we have such an affection for this
Guys,
trilogy.
3,
But we all wanted to put an end to it, and we all accept that we are the characters that we were in the films, like they were part of us,
Yeah.
and we had to let go of them essentially.
So one of the crucial parts of Transfigured Part 3 that you will notice right off the bat is that I am not filming it. It is Samuel that films the majority of it.
And I filmed some of it.
Yeah, so there's one part where I film because I essentially have to get inside this storm shelter where Sammy finds his relic, but other than that, I'm actually one of the key roles in this.
He's
in this one.
basically the main character in the film, which sort of makes sense because he's the one who made all the other films.
Yeah.
So
And this is essentially where I find out that, like, I'm the director, and one of the plot twists is that, like, I was infected by Morbus. And essentially, the pseudo plot we came up with was that Morbus forced me to make these.
Morbus wanted you to make these films.
To kind of document how Morbus, like, how powerful
Yeah.
he is. We kind of painted
'Cause
Morbus
it didn't
as...
end on a good note.
No.
I died.
This film kind of paints Morbus as this, like, sadistic, like, almost showrunner, which we kind of connected to the South Station
Puppets.
With
We were all puppets.
if death were a stage.
because we were all essentially Morbus's puppets.
Wait, well, I didn't make. When I remember in Transfer Part 2, I said we're all puppets.
Yeah.
That was from you, but it
Yeah.
turns out that actually Morbus. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
played a part
It connects.
unintentionally
Yeah.
as well.
Again. But yeah, that... I mean, Transfigured Part 3, there's not a lot to say other than that it just connects all the films, but the ending is excruciatingly important because
Yes.
we all... I mean, like, freaking obviously we're going to be making more films. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, I'm not just going to sit here and drop filmmaking right now. But the ending is so crucial because this was an idea that we had that because of the fact that whatever, like, we can talk about this, but basically Sammy picks up the camera and says, like, these horrors are over, but it's not over yet. So, like, he's referring to the fact that everything at the Looking Glass is over, and now there is going to be
Like
a new
chapter
horror.
beginning.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this series, we had a very clear reason for Joseph not being the one that's filming this one the whole time, is because in our next series, we're all making our own film, and we're all going to be filming the script we create. So not all of them are going to be written by Joseph. One of them is going to be written by Joseph. One of them is going to be written by me, and then Samuel's going to have a short film of his own.
A short, like a creation length,
Kind of a
short.
bridge into
Yeah.
the next one.
So what our plan is right now is that James is going to write the first one, Sammy's going to have the bridge film, and then I'm going to have the ending. So
Partially because we already established I have no creative writing.
And we'll
just
probably,
creative
and we'll
ideas.
probably, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we had at least one more film, because we'll probably be like, oh, we're too connected to this to wrap everything up.
because you can see, like, this whole Looking Glass Anthology had, what, 8 films? Seven main films and then creation.
Yeah.
So
Eight.
literally we made eight canonical films in this whole series, and, like, I don't know, just from my perspective, this is one of the series that has kind of established this channel and kind of established, like, I mean, obviously my standing on YouTube is very small, but, like, these films have made some halfway decent waves in terms of, like, their reception and their exposure. So I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of weight and gravity to the fact that it's over and, like, we're not in this world anymore. And I know, for me at least, I'm when we were filming the Lost Tapes, I didn't want the filming to end in a way, because I just have a love for this series, because, like, I didn't think my first filming experience would be a series, you know?
Yeah. And I already sort of felt bad with the Lost Tapes, but with Transfigured Part 3, it really hit in while we were filming it. Like,
And that kind of adds to our improv, because our improv was very, like, somber and sad in a way.
Also, there's like a really cool scene in it where, like, this is before like this film takes place before the lost tapes take. Like, and there's a scene in there where it shows us filming last scene of the lost tapes because like we have to make one more film in order to wrap this all up, so we can kind of be free of everything. After that, that's when like these items that we find from they don't trigger us.
Right.
And that's what leads. There was the one scene though that I wanted in there, which we couldn't do, was we were gonna go down to the park, and that's where we were gonna find his jacket.
Yeah.
With the creek and all that, because that would have been a cool shot at night. But there was a we'll just use the word creep to keep it family friendly on this channel. And he's basically
Drug dealer. Drug dealer.
Okay. So we didn't get to shoot that, but once again we had to improv a reason why we couldn't do
and we
that.
did, yeah, we
did.
did pretty good at that.
We did decent.
But overall, this was like really, really good improv by all of us.
It was
like,
so good.
And it passed by so quickly that we thought this was the shortest one, and it turned out to be 42
I thought it was
minutes.
like 30 minutes. You're like, 41 minutes? What the?
It's like,
yeah, there's no dead air in this one.
it happens to be the longest film that I've made currently.
And it would have been 50 minutes, probably almost, if we had gotten to do
the creek would have been like a whole separate scene.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, Transfigured Part 3, I mean, that's been like less than a month ago, and like, you know, who knows when we're gonna get to making. Who knows when we're gonna make these next films? I'm sure by like January or February there'll start being some news about the next films.
Ideas in the works.
It makes sense to start the new film series in the next decade.
Yeah. So it's interesting because this decade is over and like these
films are over.
Films are over.
So like I love this series, but like the excitement of being in a new IP is like uncomparable to like just having new ideas and like a fresh plate, fresh characters, and like all the knowledge we've accrued from these films, and now we get to put it into a new setting, completely different.
Yeah, and I like the idea that we're all going to be making our own films because it'll bring out different personalities with the same plot going. I mean, we'll collaborate on the plots together, obviously, because we have to make the film. But it'll be cool to see different personalities appearing in each film.
Yeah. And, you know, this will be the first time, like, I'll have a main
weird
role.
too, because James's film, me and Joseph, and my film would be Joseph and James, and your film would be me and James.
Yeah, and for my film, I mean, I don't have any ideas for it yet, but Joseph will be the main role in my film. I've already decided that.
So, yeah, you know, I've already got some ideas. I'm not willing to share those ideas quite yet. I mean, I've shared my ideas with you all. So there is I think from what I've shared that there is a very, very unique structure to these films that makes all three feel like one film. So just saying that, like, expect that the films will feel very one until they're all three out. And once they're all three out, I guarantee that they will probably feel like one cohesive film.
And we'll find a way to... Only 3 films. I don't
right
know
now.
if we'll just do... Yeah. Probably just...
We are planning
the
to do
film
more
and
improv.
Transfigured, yeah.
It's going to be a Transfigured-like series.
It'll be an improv series again, but it's going to be totally different.
Yeah, and it'll be like a different name and stuff like that.
It'll probably be like one... Or what would...
It's hard to really say how many, because like improv is based on our feeling and like.
But it's I don't know if we're gonna do like we did before. Like,
I don't know.
Are we gonna make like a new improv then do it and kind of ideas?
I think what we were gonna do was do the first James's film and then do the improv based on James's film.
Yeah, I was thinking either that or a beginning with the improv film where we find the world. And then doing my film, but either way,
I mean because
like this one we unintentionally made the improv and then got a connection.
I mean, my idea was that we do the improv first, but I mean we've talked about both ideas and like there's nothing set in stone, so I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversation to do with this. But basically, I think that's just about all we have for this. Just for those of you who managed to stay through this podcast, that's your little treat for staying through.
Good
is
job.
That you
Nearly
know
2 hours.
you know what's coming up next, and obviously I'll probably make some sort of, but like that's basically all I have to say. We'll do more stuff. So like this isn't goodbye from all three of us.
No.
We'll be doing more stuff.
Bye from this.
Just goodbye from this series, and I guess until 2020 we'll be just thinking of ideas, and we'll have a new IP in 2020 and onward. So just cool that we made it through this series, and like it ended in a really nice way.
Sign off.
So
Final.
so yeah, I think that's just about all we have to say.
Yeah.
So appreciate you all for watching as always. Thank you for the recent growth and surge in the channel.
Oh, and you're welcome for filling you all in with everything. Connection, in case you all don't get it or you've only watched like the Looking Glass, not realizing the Transfigured film.
Yeah.
Because some people are like, oh, if they haven't watched Transfigured, they have no idea because we don't mention Transfigured in any of the
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
So they would have no idea that it's connected.
So yeah, that's the Looking Glass Anthology for you.
Mm-hmm.
Fun times. So thank you all so incredibly much for watching. Go to jasouthworthreviews.com. JASreviews.
JASouthworthreviews.com.
Let me get my plug in.
JASouthworthreviews.com.
Let me get my plug in.
I'm giving you your
J
plug-in.
J
You don't even know my name, though.
JASouthworthreviews.blogspot.com.
And on YouTube, go to Sammy 43214 or 43124 and go look at my old videos from let's say 8 or 9 years ago and give me some subscriptions.
I thought you were going to promote your Mixer.
I thought you were gonna.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was gonna
Follow
do.
me on Mixer, Sammy Clips, and follow my boy Gladys on Mixer under Gladys. That's GLADIIS, even though you're on his YouTube channel. And that's SAMMYCLIPS Clips.
Peace out.